Hello everyone in CSC-134 C++ programming. We're in chapter 7, processing arrays, and this lecture is designed to help you with your project. Now, your project in this module is going to require you to write a function to sum the elements in an array. So this material in module 6, I'll show you exactly where it is. I'm in module 6, and this item right here, range-based for loop with array lecture. This has the technique that you need to do one part of your project. So I'm going to click into there and talk to you a little bit about this. So there is pretty much, how to put this, the way they show this in your textbook on page 406 is pretty much trash. So I'm going to show you a clean way to write a function that will take an array in as a parameter and will roll through that array and sum all the elements up and return that. Now, when you're passing arrays to functions, you have to be careful because the name of an array is actually just a pointer to where that array lives in memory. So if you pass an array to a function as a parameter, it just doesn't work to use a range-based loop or another technique here that I'm going to show you. So there are two ways to accomplish this, but both of them rely on passing a reference to that array. And I have put that in red because it is so important. None of this will work right unless you do exactly what I have here. Now, if you'll notice, this is a function signature, okay? And it has parentheses around the name of the array that's coming in here. Values is our parameter that will take on the array. Because we put this ampersand in front of it, that means it's getting a reference. So it's getting the actual address of that array. We wrapped it in parentheses so that it references that entire array, and then we're providing the size to it. So if you can remember to do these three things right here, the parentheses, the reference, and the size, then you have this nailed as far as getting it to work. Now, I've given you a sample program here. Now, this is all written out in text because you really should read through all this, because this tells you more than what I can say here in the video. But I am going to show you how this works. So I'm going to download this first sample. It says range-based for with array. Now, in the Introduction to Arrays lecture video that's out there, we have already talked about a range-based loop with an array, and that saves you a lot of work using a range-based for loop, because you don't have to worry about the index, you don't have to worry about bumping the index and the subscripts and all that. It's just so much easier. But this will not work unless you pass the array to the function like I have here. This is a function prototype here. The actual function signature would have the name of the variable in it. So let's go ahead and download that. I'll save that to my downloads. Okay. And then I'll open that up with Genie. So this is the range-based example. Now, right here, nothing special. We have a constant. Notice this constant is defined at the global level. It's outside of any functions. This is saying how big our array is going to be. So we have set size as 5. This is our function prototype for our function that's going to roll through the array that we pass to this function, and it will return the sum of all the elements in that array. Now, again, this is the part that you have to be careful about. You will not find this in your book. You won't find this online. It took a lot of experience to get this to work. So, again, you won't get this to work unless you use this technique. So, this function prototype is saying expect a reference to an array, and this is the size of the array, and there's the parentheses so that we actually get the array. So here inside of main, we're initializing an array. That array is named nums, and it has these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in it. You can see that the size here we defined as 5 as well. Okay. Now here is our getTotal function being called, and you'll notice, what's the name of the array? Nums. What are we passing to the getTotal function? We're passing the nums array. Now here is the actual function signature, and you'll notice I called it values. Doesn't have to be called values. You could call it anything you want, but this is going to be the name of the array inside this function. Okay? It gets size from that global named constant right here, that's size. So this is saying give me a reference to whatever's passed. So from here on out, it's pretty simple. Once you get this part down, everything works like a charm. We have our accumulate pattern going on here. So we set total equal to 0 outside of the loop. Here we have a range-based for loop. Notice this is the name of the array that's getting passed. Okay. This for loop's going to roll through every element in that array. Now, value is going to be the variable that receives that element of the array each time through. So if we look at our array here, that's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. First time this loop starts, value will have a 1 in it. Second time, it automatically gets a 3. The third time it loops, it automatically gets the 5, and so on. So you can see this is going to roll through. What's it doing here? It's simply the accumulate pattern. It's taking the variable total, adding the whatever that current number is to it, and it's rolling back again. So this is really pretty simple. This is a generic function that you could use over and over to get the total of the elements in an array. The main thing you have to remember is you have to remember this part. You have to set the size of your array here, and you have to have a prototype for that function. So let's try it out. I'll build this program and then I'll run it, and you can see it says total is 25. Total is 25. So 5 and 7 is 12. 12 and 3 is 15, 16. 16 and 9 is 25. That's given us the right number. So this is a range-based for loop to process an array, and it's a function that's getting it. So very handy to be able to just call that and get a sum of everything in that array. Now I'm going to show you one other technique. This is not in your book, and the one I'm fixing to show you is definitely not in your book. There is a really cool set of libraries in C++ that can save you a ton of work. I do mean a ton. And so that library is the algorithm library, and then there is another one for working with numbers. It's called Numeric. And so if we wanted to do the same thing that we just did without having to use a loop at all, we can use the Numeric library. And of course, if we're going to use the Numeric library, and you can click into this and see all the different things that are built into that, but if we're going to use that, we have to add an include, a pound include for numeric at the top of our program. Don't forget that. Now, the other thing to remember is that the accumulate function that's built into this numeric requires a pointer to the beginning and the end of the array. So here's the way I implemented this, and you'll notice this has no for loop at all in it. No loop at all to sum that whole array up. So here's the technique. This should look familiar, this part right here. That's exactly what I was doing up here in this program that used the range-based for loop. But this does a little bit of a different thing inside. If you'll notice, we set our total up. We set our variable to hold the total up. Here we just said total equals accumulate. Now our array name that we have as the parameter is named values. So this begin function right here that I'm calling, begin gets a pointer to the start of the array. The end function gets a pointer to the end of the array, and so and you have to pass this 0.0 if you want it to work correctly. But once you call this, you just get the total. Bam. Doesn't get much better than that. So let's try that one out. So that's accumulate with the array, and remember we have to have the include numeric in there. So I'll save that one down, and there it is. So let's open that up. Accumulate with array example. Okay, so the top part of this looks pretty much the same, doesn't it? If you compare this code right here, the main function and all, it looks pretty much the same. Okay, not much has changed there. If we go all the way to the top and look at the one that's using the accumulate function, you'll notice I had to add this. I had to add pound include numeric, because that's where the accumulate function is. I put it in the comments here. Accumulate is in the numeric library. So once we do that, this get total function signature looks exactly the same as this one. No difference. Okay. But right here is our call to the accumulate function. And if you remember when we ran this program with the for loop right here, the range-based for loop, we got a total of 25. So I'm going to build this one and run it, and you'll see I still get a total of 25. So I've shown you two ways. Personally, I like to use the numeric simply because I don't have to create a loop at all. I just have to remember to include the numeric library, and then I can use the accumulate function. I have to call the begin and the end to pat, because it expects the start of the array and the end of the array. And so this is a drop-in function almost for your project. Your project has you totaling up some things. So it's almost a drop-in for your project. So that's the lecture on the range-based loop to total the values in an array. You will not find it in your book. You won't find either one of these in your book. You'll find them doing some code that's standalone, but you will not find a function to do this in your book. All right, good luck with your project this week. Take care.